Bulolo voters miss out. Simbu polls deferred.
We will do polling tomorrow.
17 provinces into polling.
This is National EMTV News with Mary Bartolo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us for Monday's news. Polling for Simbu province has been deferred to tomorrow morning. Provincial Election Manager Reverend Tom Sinnett told EMTV News this was due to issues on the common roll list issued to them by the Electoral Commission. Vasinata Yama files this report from Simbu.
It is 3 p.m. and electoral officials in Simbu are still packing and sealing ballot papers and polling materials. The polling was supposed to be held today but was suspended and deferred to tomorrow morning. Provincial Election Steering Committee have discovered some issues with the common roll. They have been advised to use the preliminary roll and vote tomorrow. By this evening, all the ballot papers will be dispatched to all the electorates in Simbu province.
Our first electorate is Karamunomane, accessible only by air. There's a plane already on the ground. There are 4 choppers waiting, and we have to do all this in Chesson today. So, being the manager, I am very optimistic that we will do polling tomorrow.
Provincial Election Manager Reverend Tom Sinnett said the common roll update for all the electorates have contained discrepancies. Candidates and their supporters in the province were not happy with the issue of the electoral roll. This has forced the Election Steering Committee to cancel the polling today.
And we're very appreciative of the fact that they've given us the approval to go ahead and use the preliminary roll. And they've also printed that roll again and delivered this morning, which is a good sign of democracy at its best.
Meanwhile, Simbu Provincial Police Commander David Sinnett said a deferring today of polling is not of security issue. There are more than 1,000 joint security forces on the ground, and security will not be a concern for the province.
So that's more than sufficient. So when it comes to the overall security of the province itself, I think I am pretty satisfied with the number of joint security personnel who are on the ground, including the local forces who are here.
Eastern Command Commander Assistant Police Commissioner Nema Mondia says the disruption today with the deferring of polling in Simbu did not affect the security arrangements.
Today, I think all the security personnel will be sent to the electorates and the districts, and they've been set into the polling places and wait for the arrival of the ballot papers.
Simbu province will start voting tomorrow as early as 6 in the morning, then followed by Jiwaka on Friday. Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News, Kundiawa.
In the Eastern Highlands province, Goroka district's one-day polling started with a lot of issues. The 6 a.m. start was delayed until 2 p.m. this afternoon, and in one polling booth, polling was disrupted as voters were given extra ballot papers.
These pictures show voters at the Muriso polling booth, which started polling at 2 p.m. PPC Eastern Highlands, Alex and Russell said the delay was because electoral officials did not prepare electoral materials on time. There were also concerns raised by candidates on voter numbers in certain areas. At the Muriso polling booth, another issue came up during polling. This amateur footage supplied by one of the voters shows disgruntled voters complaining because certain voters were given extra ballot papers. police intervened shortly after and polling in this area resumed. Eastern Highlands is scheduled to conduct one-day polling. However, certain areas have not begun polling yet. PPC and Russell says Kainantu District, Obura-Wanenara District and remote parts of Okapa and Goroka District have been delayed to tomorrow. Sarah Aupong, National EMTV News.
Responding to queries raised about the late start on the Goroka polling day today, the Electoral Commissioner, Patilius Gamato, says there will not be any additional days given for places that have commenced polling. Mr. Gamato was speaking to reporters at this afternoon's briefing at the Electoral Commission headquarters.
If it's a one-day polling, it has to be one-day polling. We cannot extend. Unless it's a remote area and there is multiple-day polling. So they poll from one place and they move on to another place next day. But if it's one-day polling, it has to be one day.
Mr. Gamato, don't you think it's unfair because polling started at 2 p.m. and not in the morning?
Well, depends on how they poll, and if they poll and finish, they finish at whatever time they say it must finish.
So they can continue until the evening?
Until 6. And they cannot extend. When we say it's one-day polling, it's one-day polling. They'll have to go by the polling timing. They're supposed to start at 8 o'clock in the morning and finish at 6 o'clock.
Up to 100 voters in Ward 16 of the Mumeng LLG of Bulolo district have missed out on casting their votes in this election. Nearly all the voters turned 18 after the 2012 elections but could not register due to a shortage of registration forms. This is just one of the many communities facing this problem.
Another ward area in the Bulolo district went to the polls today. Ward 16 in Sambio, Mumeng LLG Bulolo district. Registered voters 812. The ward councillor said this morning polling officers brought only 800 ballot papers. 12 registered voters won't be able to vote in this election. But that's not the only problem. Up to 100 young adults who turned 18 after the 2012 elections missed out on voting in this election. Earlier in the year, when the Electoral Commission carried out the registration process, there was a shortage of forms. Requests by ward councillors for additional forms weren't attended to, leaving many young voters unregistered.
All man were only 18, all by vote this national election, no got form. Only no kissing name long.
Miss Pilim, I'm exploring long by must vote. Last 2012, they come now, 2017. That's what I mean of being establishing a vote. All I'm working census, all no put him in control command road. Now, maybe me, I'm a vote. Me by vote, as a Pilim, I must vote. I want to vote along or candidate to you, Papua New Guinea.
Initially, when concerns were raised about the shortage of registration forms, the Electoral Commission remained tight-lipped about it. No clear answers were given to ward councillors who were the first to raise the alarm. By the end of polling, many young men and women will have missed out on the opportunity to vote the leader of their choice. 100 eligible voters in Sambio missing out on voting may not seem like a large number, but it represents 1/8 of the total voting population in this ward area. This is just a tiny glimpse of the extent of the problems with the electoral roll nationwide. Scott Waide, National EMTV News, Bulolo.
Polling in the Morobe province has begun in most districts. This excludes Menyamia, which will commence tomorrow, and Leh, scheduled for one-day polling on Thursday. The rainy season in the province stands as one of the challenges this election, as several polling teams are already behind schedule. Polling preparations for the Leh electorate are ongoing at this time and should be set before Thursday.
Preparations for polling in Leh continue today as the election officers in the district labelled ballot boxes and sorted out materials for the 55 polling teams. With the one-day polling date set for the 29th, returning officer for Leh David Wasinik says preparations are going well. Allocation of polling materials will be done on Wednesday and teams are expected to set up for polling early on Thursday. Although preparations have been going well, the concern now lies with the weather. Several polling teams across the province have already been delayed by 2 to 3 days because of bad weather. Assistant Election Manager for Morobe, Frida Joseph, told MTV that polling schedules will have to be adjusted due to this. However, polling will not go beyond the gazetted 14-day period. Lucy Kopana, National MTV News, Leh.
Now, Morobe has 8 rural districts and 1 urban district. The greater challenge has always been managing the deployment of polling teams in rural areas. Now, joining us live is Leh journalist Lucy Kopana. Lucy, good evening. Thank you for joining. Lucy, good evening. Thank you for joining us. How is Morobe doing in terms of deploying polling teams?
In terms of deploying polling teams, Morobe is a very big province, and not all teams have been deployed as yet. For the King Chaplain, Makam and Nawab districts, all teams have been deployed, and for Bulolo and Minyamya, however, teams that were waiting for to be airlifted to their locations are still waiting. We're still waiting. 77 of polling teams in the Morobe province are to be airlifted. As of this morning, only 34 of those teams were sent off to their locations, and some more were sent off this afternoon, but not all teams have been deployed to their locations as yet.
Now, one of the difficult districts to cover is Menyamya, which has terrible road conditions. What have you heard?
Morobe at the moment is experiencing rainy season, and with the terrible road conditions that Minyamya has, the road conditions have been worsening over time, and ballot boxes as well as security personnel arrived late on Saturday, so they were deployed this morning today, and they will start polling tomorrow. However, as stated, some of their teams are still waiting to be airlifted to their sites.
All right, thank you, Lucy. That was Lucy Kopana, our journalist over in Leh. You're watching National MTV News. We'll have more after these messages. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National MTV News. Papua New Guinea Electoral Commissioner Patilius Gamato has maintained that funding will not be an issue during this election. This clears doubt about the use of funding for the 2017 national elections. Eric Harupma with this report.
Apparently, Papua New Guinea's general election is the most expensive election compared to the rest of the world, amounting to 400 million kina. Chief Secretary Isaac Lupari says from the 400 million kina allocated by the national government, 121 million kina is budgeted for security, while the balance of 279 million kina will be used by the Electoral Commission.
It's not an issue. They got extra cash sitting in their trust, enough to run the elections. If they need additional, we will make sure that money is in their respective trust account. So I want to make that very absolutely clear to the rest of Papua New Guinea.
Geographically, the 400 million kina will accommodate for logistics and support in transporting ballot boxes and election officials throughout the country during the polling and counting period.
We are impressed with the planning and organization to now, and up to the time we visited them last week. All the 7 provinces were covered. We visited them and talked to them. Their trucks ready to go out to the stations, insert their teams and get them ready to conduct the polls. And so that's a good indication from the islands provinces.
For NCD, the National Capital District Commission Election Steering Committee has committed another 1 million kina to assist EC run the election. Chairman Robert Williams says the NCDC as a municipal city authority has come on board to assist with logistics and support.
NCDC has come on board to assist to make sure that we find a suitable way to run elections and find another way. But for these elections, we are supportive. Management of NCDC has given us the okay to work closely with Mr. Hetten and the Electoral Commission.
Eric Harupma, National MTV News.
One-day polling for Port Moresby residents will take place tomorrow, and the challenge is whether election officials will be at their designated sites ready for polling and whether voters will arrive on time. This is because of the vast majority of people from different ethnic groups living in the city who will be moving around the city to cast their vote. However, Electoral Commissioner Patilius Gamato is confident of delivering a successful polling for NCD.
Chief Secretary Isaac Lupari, speaking during the Security and Election Deployment briefing, told the media that a metropolitan city like Port Moresby is difficult to manage during polling. Lupari said this is because NCD has a majority of people from different ethnic groups across the country who will turn up for polling.
Only the uniform security personnel will be in the county. We are asking the Electoral Commission to make sure that there's 2 or 3 in each of the counting area. This is to allow that there's check and balance on everyone that is in that room, including the scrutineers, including the polling officials.
This is something the Electoral Commission, particularly Commissioner Patilius Gamato, has been aware of. Gamato says polling in NCD requires extra manpower and security personnel to deliver polling safely.
For NCD, it's a big area. Okay, the population is big. So I want to encourage all of you, especially the returning officers and assistant returning officers. You are very important people, and so I want you to provide that leadership, be honest, diligent, and fair in conducting the election.
NCD Metropolitan Superintendent Benjamin Tory said NCD police will tighten up security during polling.
Army, police presence, CS all come into their respective 3 electorates and attend to it, clear up situation and continue patrolling. So it's all detailed, don't worry about anything. Army and police, CS, we will be together as a team.
Eric Arupma, National EMTV News.
Paramana village in the Abao district of Central Province stopped polling less than an hour after starting because of issues with the electoral roll. EMTV was on site when scrutineers and disgruntled villagers unhappy with names missing from the electoral roll forced their way into the polling stations and forced the polling officials and villagers to stop the election process. Scrutineers claim the voting population of Paramana is just over 2,000. However, the electoral roll contains only 1,700 names. Returning officer for Abao, Lawrence Barrow, visited Paramana village to deal with the electoral roll issue. Mr. Barrow said the electoral roll used today is the updated one and not the 2012 one as claimed by the scrutineers. The issue is expected to be resolved tomorrow before polling ends at 6 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Electoral Commissioner Patilius Gamato confirmed that 17 provinces are already into polling. Gamato gave a media update this afternoon from the Electoral Commission headquarters. Some districts faced delays due to polling materials distributed late, police personnel not receiving funding, and voters not being on the electoral roll.
Gamato said while some places commenced polling, some provinces faced issues while others ran smoothly.
Some have started, some are slowly starting. So I want to say that out of 22 provinces, the 17 provinces have started.
For the New Guinea Island region, the autonomous region of Bougainville, polling had commenced in the North Bougainville, and the other 2 districts will begin tomorrow.
Bougainville and Central Bougainville have not started because of 2 issues. One is the roll issue, and second is the outstanding claim for 2012. As I said earlier, outstanding claims will become issue, will become risk to us as we go on. But I'm appealing to those service providers, especially those who have outstanding, to understand our situation and allow us to conduct the elections.
For the Highlands region, Helen Simbu, one-day polling will commence tomorrow.
The issue in LI is that they wanted, the candidates wanted their own polling and presiding officers. And they petitioned me over the weekend, and I wrote back to them and said, no, you cannot, because that responsibility is ours, and so you cannot appoint your own presiding officer.
For the provinces in Momasa region,
Wasaragawi, they started today Monday 26. Maprik, some parts, they've started on Saturday. So polling in Maprik is progressing, including today. Maprik Eben will start tomorrow. Okay, it will start tomorrow. So that's in the East Sepik province. For Medang province, ballot papers and ballot boxes for Bogia district has been delivered on Friday. The polling started today, 26.
And for the southern region, Gamato said that polling has gone smoothly so far in Central Province and NCD to follow tomorrow. Adelaide Siraks Kari, National, EMTV News.
And now a look at the finance news. The kino closed unchanged at $0.3145 in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kino was buying $0.307 $0.403 Australian dollars, €0.271 and 33.82 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, coffee, cocoa, copra closed higher, while gold closed the day lower. Palm oil and crude oil closed lower, while copper closed the day higher. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed 2 points lower, the ASX closed 2 points higher, and the All Ordinaries closed 2 points higher. You're watching National EMTV News. After the break, some stories making headlines overseas. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Turning overseas now, Iraqi forces fighting ISIS in Mosul say many foreign fighters are among the militants holed up in the last part of the city.
Heading to the front line in Mosul. You have to run and beware of snipers. But troops from Iraq's Emergency Response Division are advancing every day. We move deeper into the battle, getting a chance to see how the fight is being taken to the so-called Islamic State.
Well, the fight here is at extremely close quarters. This is the most forward position the Iraqi troops have. They tell us that the nearest IS position is just 15 meters away.
Here's the hospital building where commanders say about 200 foreign militants are holed up, including some Britons. That's what our intelligence tells us, says Colonel Falah al-Wabdan. And also we heard them speaking on the radio. We can tell their nationality from that. And Iraqi drones monitor their movements, if they dare to move at all. Here, militants run from building to building in the vast medical complex, looking for cover. Commanders tell us there are French, Russians and Chechens here, as well as the British. They say there are 3 senior IS leaders along with them, trapped below ground. It's the final push against an enemy that once controlled a third of Iraq, and that tonight has begun a counterattack.
A petrol tanker had crashed in Pakistan and then exploded, killing at least 150 people. Villagers gathered around the tanker to collect the leaking oil when it caught on fire.
Hundreds of local villagers flocked to the scene of the overturned tanker this morning. Despite being warned not to, in this impoverished area, they collected fuel in buckets, jerry cans, and even empty water bottles. But moments later, grief and anguish. Thousands of litres of petrol went up in flames, engulfing those nearby. Early reports suggest the blaze began when someone lit a cigarette.
The oil tanker turned over. People shouted, "Oil, oil!" The local traffic police asked people to leave, warning it may explode. Suddenly there was a fire.
The empty, charred wreckage gives an idea of how many people were there. Pictures, too graphic to broadcast, showed bodies piled by the road. Medical teams worked flat out to assist the injured and consoled the bereaved. Amongst those critically hurt are children, whilst relatives desperately search for news of their loved ones.
Some in Pakistan have blamed the victims for rushing towards the scene of the accident. But in other quarters, there's a sense of anger that people here are not educated enough about basic safety issues and that poverty forces them to risk their lives for a few litres of free petrol.
The tragedy casts a shadow over preparations for the Muslim festival of Eid al-Fitr, due to take place here tomorrow. Instead of celebrations, there'll be funerals.
An Air Asia flight travelling from Perth to Kuala Lumpur was forced to turn back 19 minutes after takeoff because the aircraft began violently shaking. The plane had 359 passengers on board.
The Air Asia flight returning to Perth on one engine, ending a terrifying trip for 359 passengers. Mid-flight to Kuala Lumpur, and the aircraft started shaking violently. One passenger said it felt like a washing machine. It sounded like it as well. Marine rescue services north of Perth were told to prepare for a possible crash into the water. Passengers first heard a loud bang before the plane began to shudder.
Please listen to the briefing. Our survival depends on your cooperating. Hopefully everything will turn out for the best.
Lots of people crying, lots of people pulling out their life jackets and stuff, like pretty much preparing. Like we thought there was a good chance that we were going to go down.
Some passengers were in tears once they were back on safe ground. As they taxied, the pilot told passengers he believed a turbine blade had broken off inside one of the jet's engines. Air Asia issued a statement which was short on details, saying the plane returned to Perth Airport shortly after takeoff due to a technical reason.
Back home, and sitting members of Parliament NCD Governor Paul Sparkop and Mosby South MP Justin Kichenko have expressed concerns on tomorrow's polling for NCD. They raised concerns on the electoral roll and allegations of illegal ballot papers and polling venues. However, they also encouraged eligible voters to cast their votes tomorrow.
Sitting Governor Paul Sparkop has aired his concerns about voting in the nation's capital. Sparkop says rumours of illegal ballots are surfacing in the NCD and doesn't want NCD to have a failed election.
Very, very bad and, unacceptable for leaders and parties to engage in this type of behavior, undermining our democratic system, undermining the will of our people, really retarding this, the system that we put in place. It's incumbent on everyone to respect the system. And those people who are engaging in this type of bad, illegal activities, they don't deserve to be leaders of our country.
Mosby South sitting member Justin Kichenko was also there to support the governor. But their greatest concern is electoral updates and number of eligible voters who registered that may miss out. Also, Sparkop says polling areas were not voter-friendly, with Port Moresby voting areas for each suburb at a stationary area.
Understand, Electoral Commission, I think the law is very clear. The common roll should be ready before campaigns start, reach the issue. The candidates and parties have an opportunity to verify the common roll, and they can, make correction or ask for correction.
Tomorrow, the nation's capital will be voting for the 3 open electorates and their regional seat. Adelaide Siraks Kari, National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. Up next, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. United Nations Coordinator to PNG, Roy Trivedi, says the 5 athletes selected for the Sustainable Development Goals Champions were nominated based on community recognition and sporting achievements. The SDG champions include Ryan Pinney, Tanya Mahuru, Lua Rikis, Christopher Amini and Milton Kisapai.
5 amazing champions, they are going to be able to reach
United Nations Resident Coordinator Roy Trevedy congratulated 5 Team PNG athletes on their appointment as Sustainable Development Goals champions. The 5 athlete champions will work closely with United Nations representatives in delivering their chosen goals into the communities using sports as part of their awareness of the Sustainable Development Goals. Each athlete champion from the 17 Sustainable Development Goals has chosen one goal each to work with and improve its status in the communities. Roy says it was a pleasure for UN to partner with the International Olympic Committee and the Team PNG athletes.
What I've really enjoyed is over the last few weeks and months working with you and hearing about your own passions, about particular things that you care about, which I think, was fantastic for me to hear, and I can't wait for you to tell even more people.
PNG's #1 swimmer Ryan Pinney chose life and well-being and says it is something PNG needs as a developing country.
I chose health and well-being, and I think in any developing country that is a huge issue, as well as developed countries as well. So,
while other SDG champions shared their love and passion for their chosen goals, Lua Rickies chose water and sanitation, saying it is one of the biggest challenges that PNG as a developing nation is facing.
So it's just talking about it. That's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to be talking about it more in my communities, in my spaces of sport, in any events that I'm invited to go and talk about the importance of water and get people to think about this and demand for these services.
While UN reps have emphasized on community development and sustainable living for better PNG, PNG OC Secretary General Ovita Rapila says all 5 athletes will be supported on their goals.
The fact that the attainment of the SDGs is the responsibility of everyone, you and me and all of us here. And in sport, we're doing our part. We're doing our part in this way, using these athletes as champions.
Trevedy says while all the 17 goals are a challenge in the country, working together in one way or another will not only help now but also into the future. Godwin Eki, National, EMTV Sports.
Lots of fireworks in the top of the table clash between KSS and Emperado as the Port Moresby Basketball League's Premier Division ended round 1 last night. Here are the highlights.
Both sides were undefeated throughout the first round as the star-studded Flames took on a so far tenacious Emperado side who were looking at dominating the competition. The first quarter went the way of the Flames with a commanding 31-21 point lead. But by halftime, the Flames found themselves 5 points behind as Emperado went ahead 51-46. Steady concentration at the interval. Flames coach Moi Muri clearly unhappy with his side's inability to fully control the match. Opposition coach Eddie Salazar drilling in his tactical approach as Emperado fought to stay ahead. The third quarter a mess of technical fouls as the match threatened to boil over. Flames holding on for a narrow 87-85 point win. Jeremy Moggy, National TV Sports.
To football, a fierce encounter in the Premier Division match between Mamase and FC Genesis as the Port Moresby Soccer Association capped off its round 5 games yesterday. The 4th placed Genesis side claiming their 3rd win this season.
National coach Fleming Siritzlev, a member of the audience, as Percy Matayo's FC Genesis looked at extending their winning run this season. They would face a tough ask against a Mamase side that had former PNG Youth International Richard Matanga and one-time NSL defender Moses Arisib in their side. And while it was a physical encounter from the get-go, a fortunate strike by defender Titus Mokagai for Genesis would see his side equalize after going a goal down early. Another goal was followed up 15 minutes later. Former PNG international Andrew Lepani with a beautiful curled corner for his side's second, right on the stroke of half-time. Mamase had been placed under intense pressure throughout the match, Arisem getting physical against the silky skills of midfielder Brett Seriba, as Genesis looked at being one of the newest clubs on the scene to make the finals. The final score, a 4-1 win for FC Genesis. Munkas FC lead the PMSA table with University Inter in second place. Genesis are in fourth and Yamaros FC languish at the bottom of the table. Jeremy Moggy, National TV Sports.
PNG Professional Boxing hosted their second event of the year, showcasing some of their top pro boxers as they took to the ring. The event was part of promoting pro boxing in the country and to encourage individual professional boxers to pursue their careers in boxing.
It was a real battle in the ring when it came to the professional bouts straight after 4 amateur performances to entertain the crowd. The first bout of the pro event was between Alan Peter and Jimmy Pius in the 52 kg, who started off to a slow hit while figuring out each other's weaknesses in round 1. In the second round, things got even tougher for the two corners as they battled through to the next round. Slowly managing to catch their breath, Alan in the red corner, who took advantage in the first 2 rounds, leading with punches. This time, it was a terrible 10 of the event as Jimmy Pius knocked his way through with heavy punches, winning the 3rd round after the judge's decision. The second bout of the pro event was taken out by John Korake, who is the current PNG champion. The third bout was a heated encounter between Jason Ayu in the blue corner, representing Manus, and Johnson Kapuz. The pair showed great defense techniques and had a fair share of punches to count on to win the bout. At 3rd round, Ayu of Manus had every right to smile after knocking down his opponent Johnson Kapuz. The last and the main bout in the lightweight division saw John Oscar from Central Province take on Junior Kaupa of the red corner. The two pro fighters shared equal amount of punches in the first 2 rounds, but got even tougher in the 3rd. Running short on breath, John Oscar tried his best to gain momentum, who was running a little puzzled and struggling to fight back. Still on his feet, all buffed and energized, opponent Junior Kaupa of the red corner, with his fast punches and absolute determination to win the bout, crippled his opponent to the floor and ended the bout at round 3 after the judges' count. Godwin Eki, National, MTV Sports.
Don't go anywhere. Trukai Sports continues after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To the NRL now, North Queensland and Maroons playmaker Jonathan Thurston has been ruled out for the rest of the 2017 season. Thurston will undergo surgery on his injured shoulder, the same injury that kept him out of State of Origin Game 1.
Lightly.
Thurston's injury comes as a blow to both Cowboys' premiership hopes and Queensland's Origin aspirations, with Thurston being an integral part of both teams.
Thurston hurt his shoulder in that last tackle, attempted tackle.
The Maroons' marquee player picked up the injury in Queensland's epic 18-16 win in Origin 2. It was later confirmed that the problem is in the rotator cuff, while Thurston is cited a recovery time of 6 months.
Not just one of the best players I've ever seen.
The star halfback is expected to be fully fit in late December, most likely after the Rugby League World Cup.
Spread, and it was executed perfectly there.
The problem has worsened from the same injury that kept Thurston out of States of Origin 1, and the increased damage had to be addressed with surgery to ensure Thurston's health after he retired.
Kick. Cowboys coming through.
Meanwhile, despite the absence of their champion playmaker, the Cowboys are confident they can achieve their goals for the 2017 season. Thurston, however, stated that he will stick to his decision to retire from representative football at the end of the year, meaning State of Origin Game 2 was his last representative match.
Dummy half. Thurston to kick. Across the ground.
Shane Soroya, National, MTV Sports.
To golf, Jordan Spieth clinched his 10th PGA Tour victory in the same way as his first by holding a bunker shot to win the Travelers Championship. He triumphed in stunning fashion by holding out the sand shot from 30 feet for birdie to beat fellow American Daniel Berger at the first extra hole at TPC River Highlands. They embarked on a playoff after finishing regulation tied at 12 under par for 268. He joins elite company as the second youngest player since 1945 to notch 10 tour victories after the legendary Tiger Woods. And that ends True Kai Sports for today. Up next, your weather details for the next 24 hours. Stay tuned.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
A quick look at the weather for the next 24 hours in the southern region. Mostly fine in Port Moresby, Daru and Kerma with a top of 31 degrees. 31 as well for Alatau and Popondetta. A shower or two in Alatau. A shower or two as well in Popondetta. To the Momase region, showers in Ley, cloudy with some showers in Wau. Mostly fine for Madang and Vanimo. A shower or two expected in Wewak. To the New Guinea Islands region, a shower or two is the order of the day for Lorengau, Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe. Some showers in Buka. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, all these major centers can expect mostly fine weather over the next 24 hours.
The weather details are proudly brought to you by Dulux Weather Shield. Worth doing with Dulux.
And that's the news, sports and weather for today, beginning another working week. MTV's Your Vote 2017 with Neville Choi and Titi Gabi is up next. But from the MTV News team, have a pleasant evening. Good night.